What's up, YouTube? And hi, welcome to the channel. I'm your host, JujuGU, and today we'll be going over all of the cards in Light's Verdict. So, Light's Verdict is the new mini set released within Mortal Judgment. It goes on sale tomorrow, September 28th at 4 p.m. for a limited time only. A god rises, a god falls. Basically, the whole lore behind the set is Thaeriel, the god of light, basically falls out of favor within the cosmos. Lysander gets promoted to a god. Thaeriel becomes immortal. Cool. The world has fallen into chaos. Ambition of Thaeriel, god of light, is to blame. Under a black sun, Lysander moved to confront his god. Yada yada yada. Above the clouds, Lysander, god of light, gets Thaeriel basically stabs Lysander in a fit of rage. Lysander becomes a god. Thaeriel becomes mortal. We went through this already. So, yeah. There are a couple of powerful cards. Thaeriel the Fallen, wield the power of a fallen god. Mortal and scorned, Thaeriel looks to subdue the world that was so eager to cast him aside. His blade burns with hatred, and his scars serve to remind him of the light that was taken from him. Under the black sun, many Pyrrhic followers resorted to order by brute force as opposed to the gentler teachings of light. Now they shun the light to follow their master and look to bring a new kind of order to Yukos. Okay, cool. So these are the powerful cards, I guess. It's in this section. We'll be going over these shortly. I actually only think one of the cards is powerful. And then one is meh, and then the other is kind of like, I don't think it's going to see a lot of play unless you devote your deck to it, but that's for another time. The Mythic and more, Omak Zamad is going to have a higher chance to drop. That's pretty nice. It hasn't been found yet. And you get to get a rare treasure when you own all the cards in Light's Verdict. And this treasure has a level for each rarity. So if you get all the cards in Diamond, you get the highest level rarity treasure. If you get everything in Meteorite, it's the lowest level. And so on and so forth for the other rarities. Cool. And now for the cards. So we're just going to go one by one. I haven't seen any of these cards yet, so this is going to be off the top of my head. We're going to do this freestyle style. What? Freestyle style? I don't know. Anyways, let's just start off with the first card. The Light seeks the truth. 5 mana light card, obliterate an enemy creature. If that creature had frontline, protected, or ward, the chosen one gains those keywords. Okay, so the first part of the effect is nice. Obliterate an enemy creature. I think that's kind of useful, especially for running into a deck with a lot of afterlives, or you're just running into a big creature. It's basically hard removal. No matter what, you're obliterating it, right? I forget if obliterate goes past ward. I think it does. If it doesn't, this card is significantly worse. But I think it does. I think it goes past everything. The second part of this effect, if that creature had frontline, protected, or ward, the chosen one gains those keywords. It's pretty negligible in my opinion, because a lot of chosen one support gives the chosen one protected, ward, or frontline along with stats. So if you're running a chosen one deck and you play this card, there's a chance your chosen one might already have those keywords involved. If not, that's great, it's a bonus, but really you're playing this card for the hard removal effect, right? Obliterate an enemy creature. It's a 5 mana card though. That's pretty expensive in my opinion, but for hard removal, I guess that's okay. Yeah, you're pretty much going to be using a full turn to play this card. If not, you're going to be playing this more late game, but yeah, it's pretty much hard removal. 5 mana is a little awkward in Gods Unchained because of the way the mana locks are structured. Yeah, I think it's going to see play, to be honest. It's a form of hard removal. It's a little expensive for my taste, but it can see play. It's a viable form of removal for our Chosen One decks. Okay, so next up we have an Empire Reborn. This is your 4 mana spell. Death spell. Destroy a creature. Destroy a creature. It could be yours or an enemy creature. Its controller summons 2 base copies of the creature that each gains Solace. So I think this card is really good. It's really powerful. Because of the class that it's in. Destroy a creature. If you destroy your own creature, it's an Anubian. There are a ton of Anubians that have afterlife effects that could be abused. Say, I don't know, what's Burrowing Scarab, for example, the 2 mana 1/1 with the afterlife, both you and your opponent draw a card. Say you have a Burrowing Scarab on the field, you play an Empire Reborn, kill the Scarab, you both draw 2 cards, and now you have 2 Scarabs on the board. And if you have another way of destroying those Scarabs, that's 6 card draw for you and your opponent. Maybe you use that in a deck out deck. That's just off the top of my head. Obviously, there's synergy with other afterlife cards like Fanatic of Kanoom or Siren of the Grave. Although I don't think you'd want to use Siren of the Grave. I mean, you could, depending on if your opponent has any answers to the double Siren of the Grave. But anyways, yeah, Fanatic of Kanoom comes off the top of my head too. Have a Fanatic of Kanoom at 4 mana, play Empire Reborn, get to 5 mana, and then you have 2 Fanatic of Kanooms so that you get to 6 mana easy. That's totally possible in a deck with, or in a domain like Death. So you can. This card is definitely a card to watch out for, and the afterlife effects of Death, and maybe not even like only Death cards. Like there might be some neutral cards that might have some good afterlife effects. So this card can enable some things, which is really nice. Next up, we have Pyrrhic Knowledge. This is a 3 mana spell for the magic class, Solace. Pull a spell to your hand from your void and obliterate cards from the top of your deck equal to its mana cost, then set the pulled spell's cost to 0. Obliterate the pulled spell at the end of your turn. So this is pretty interesting. Off the top of my head, it makes me think of like all the OTK decks, and honestly, it can enable some pretty crazy things. Besides the OTK stuff, the fact that it thins your deck out, that could be a thing to help OTK decks. If you're not using it for an OTK deck, you can use it for like a really big spell, and maybe you use it in the late game to recycle like something like a Inferno, or I don't know, something else, you know, and any spell that's above like 4 mana pretty much, right? You can use it to recycle an Epiphany, a Fireball, an Astric Explosion. I'm sorry, why did I say Fireball? I'm thinking Hearthstone. Worm Breath. So there's a lot of implications for this. I do think it can be useful. It's definitely very situational. I wouldn't want to play this card in the beginning of the game, so this is something that I want to see more later, which leads me to believe I'd want to see this more in a control deck. Cool, so moving on, we have an End to War. This is your 3 mana war spell. Pick 1. Remove Protected and Ward from a creature, then deal 2 damage to it, or obliterate a damaged creature. If you have 5 or more creatures in your void, do both. So you can get a lot of value from this. It could be a 3 mana 2-for-1, which is really nice. If you have 5 or more creatures in the void, if I had to use this effect, one effect more than the other, I think I would obliterate the damaged creature because it provides like a form of hard removal in a class that has like effects that deal damage to your opponent, like weak damage. Like Auric Rush, for example, deal 1 damage to all the creatures on the board, right? So, but removing Protected and Ward from a creature, then dealing 2 damage to it is pretty potent. Like, there are a ton of creatures in the Light class and the Magic class that have Ward and Protected, so could definitely be useful. You can also use this on an OD, so this is pretty like conditional removal, but at the same time I'm not saying it's not going to be uncommon to use. So End of War is pretty interesting. Next up, we have Forge New Bonds. This is going to be our 5-mana Deception spell. Pull a creature from the board to its owner's hand. Swap its mana cost with a creature in your hand that costs no higher than your current unlocked mana gems. So off the top of my head, I think this card is going to enable some sort of broken combo regarding a high minion. Maybe you have like a minion with Echo on board, and you summon the Echo minion. From there, you play Forge New Bonds, get the Echo minion back, and then swap it with a higher costed minion. Maybe it's, I don't know, a Demogorgon or that new Sleep Deception card. I forgot its name, but it's the 7-mana one. Anyways, if you know that 7-mana card, comment on the video below. Say it. But yeah, so I can definitely see it enabling some sort of combo with bigger creatures, and it could be pretty useful. It could be game breaking. I have to look deeper into the card pools. Remember, I'm just looking over these cards from the top of my head, but there is some potential there. Maybe, after you watch this video, look through all the deception cards and look for the cards that create 1-mana minions, and look for the minions that are a little more expensive, and see what kind of combos you can bring with it. But yeah, very decent card in my opinion. Next up, we have Shines on Us All. This is a 2-mana nature spell. Target a creature, then delve a creature of the same tribe. Each creature transforms into a base copy of itself. Okay, so this effect is a little confusing to me. You target a creature, then delve a creature of the same tribe. So if I don't know, target a wild boar, I get to delve a creature of the wild tribe, I guess, okay. Then each creature transforms into a base copy of itself. So it just transforms back to normal? Is that how I'm getting this? So if I buff a creature or debuff a creature, it turns back into its original form. That's really interesting to me. Why would I want this? It looks like it's just a debuff or it's something to debuff your opponent's debuffs, I guess. This one's a little confusing. I'm gonna have to think of use cases for this card, but it looks like it'd be kind of helpful. If anything, it's a 2-mana spell, right? So at the very least, it's a 2-mana 1-for-1 where you get a card from a creature's class. So you run it in a wild deck, Amazon deck. You can delve some pretty crazy Amazons. But that's interesting. Interesting card. I don't know if I like it. There could be something incredibly broken with it, but on the surface level, I don't think much of it. And I could be wrong. This is a first take or a first look of these cards. So, but yeah, this one I'm going to have to look more into. Next up, we have the Dearly Departed. This is your 3-mana 2/3 neutral creature. Soulless. Roar, obliterate a creature in your opponent's hand. Afterlife, add a base copy of the obliterated creature to the opponent's hand. Okay, so the Roar is good. Obliterate a creature in your opponent's hand. The Afterlife is obviously not good. Add a base copy of the obliterated creature to the opponent's hand. So you're basically summoning this creature, discarding an opponent's card, and then when this card dies, your opponent gets that card back. So it's kind of like that Swords of Revealing Light effect in Yu-Gi-Oh!, where you're preventing your opponent for a limited amount of time, and then once the card is gone, your opponent can continue along with their strategy or game plan. It could be useful. The only thing I don't like about this effect is that it's paired with this stat line: 2 mana or 3 mana for 2 strength and 3 health. If this card had maybe a little more health, or maybe it had backline or ward or protected, it would definitely see play. But I think this is one of the more useless cards within the mini set, which is why it's a rare, I guess. yeah, I probably would not be playing this card. Next up, we have the Divine Coronet. This is your 4 mana 1/1 structure, can't attack, roar, gain 4 health. If this creature has 9 health or more, delve a 9 mana creature and summon it. If it has less, shuffle it into your deck. So this card seems like a meme deck card, really. Like, this is a card you'd want to build around and maybe hopefully play. You can probably splash this in maybe a control-oriented deck, a deck that lasts a long time so that it gives you time to draw into this card a second time around. Or maybe you run this in a deck where you run buff cards or hand buff cards. So War, for example, Lead the Charge, the 3 mana spell in War, where you get to play where you play the card and it gives you like all your minions 2 health or something like that. So maybe you play two of the Lead the Charge, draw the Divine Coronet, play it, and then summon a 9 mana minion on turn 4. That could be pretty interesting. There has to be something else that goes with it, but yeah, off the top of my head, this is what I think. You can do the old-fashioned way and just draw it out, play it, shuffle it back into your deck, and then draw it out, but that's kind of boring in my opinion. Because you want to play this the turn you want to play this turn 4 and then proc its effect. If you can play this turn 4, proc its effect, you win the game. At least that's how I see it, right? Because you're summoning a 9 mana minion on turn 4, and that's like, when you're summoning a 9 mana minion on turn 4, that's like what, 11 turns earlier, 12 turns earlier than you're supposed to play a 9 mana minion. That's GG for sure. So if you can find a way to summon this card with 9 health, or if you can buff this card in your hand to 5 health and then play it on turn 4, win the game, there it is. You know what? Turning this card into the Chosen One would be fun. Maybe there's a thing to do there. I don't know. The new set has a lot of Chosen One support, so it is what it is. But I think this is an interesting card. Definitely you're going to see someone make a meme deck out of it. Copper Pitch, it's probably you. Just saying. Maybe I'll do it, but right now I'm kind of like, I'm buying the house is definitely like, I'm not going to buy any expensive decks in the meantime. But yeah, I'm still providing content though. So anyways, that's a tangent. Let's move on to the next card. Next up, we have Forged in the Light. This is a 2 mana spell. Draw the Chosen One. Your god power becomes Lysander's Justice, a 2 mana god power with give +2/+1 to the Chosen One. Okay, so this card is good. Obviously, this card is good for Chosen One decks, right? You get to draw the Chosen One. Your god power becomes Lysander's Justice. The god power is okay. I personally would love to have the numbers switched. So instead of giving 2 strength and 1 health, I would love to give 1 health and 2 strength. But I get it. That would be broken. 2 mana for that god power is just not worth the tempo, especially in the earlier turns, in my opinion. You'd want to play the god power when you have mana to spare. Obviously, it's matchup dependent. Like maybe if you're a Chosen One deck and you're playing a control deck, you'll have the time in the earlier turns to play that god power and just, play that every turn, right? But if you're playing against an aggro deck, you're probably not going to want to play that god power unless your Chosen One is like Cadmus or something with frontline. Maybe that's like the thing, but yeah, I like the card. Obviously, it's a must-have in Chosen One decks. Are Chosen One decks going to be good? We'll see, but it's a possibility. It's too early to tell. Okay, next up, we're onto our chase cards now. So, like I alluded to at the beginning of the video, one chase card is really good. One chase card is kind of meh, And then the other chase card probably won't see play, but it's like more of a collector card anyways. The first one, Blade of Whiteplain, this one is probably one of the best cards in the set, in the mini set. And it's good. It's a 5-mana neutral minion, 4/4 stats. Once per turn, after a weaker enemy creature is destroyed, draw a card. Destroy an enemy creature with 3 strength or less as a roar. That's not bad. Once per turn, of course. So you're always going to, not always, as long as you destroy a creature with the battle cry effect or the roar effect, you're always going to get a card out of this card, right? So that's good. If this card survives to the next turn, that's really good too, because then you'll have the autonomy to destroy another card if you can. Most likely you will, but it's obviously situational. But then you gain another card from this card, so that's really good. So it's pretty good. If you're playing it right, you should always get a card off of this card, right? And yeah, card advantage is really, really good. It's going to destroy one of your opponent's resources, and then it's going to replenish one of yours, all the while you still get that minion on the board. So that's like a +2, I think, in card advantage terms. Stat wise, it's a little fragile for 5 mana. If you've watched the previous videos that we've had in the channel, you know how I feel about a 4 mana health point in this game. It's weak, right? Because you have cards like Star Shard Bolt in the Magic class, Canopy Barrage, a couple other things. So if you're playing against Magic or Nature, you need to be careful when playing this card. However, because this card is, if you play this card, you activate its roar effect, and then you activate its draw effect. I kind of want that trade. Yeah, you're losing tempo because you're trading 5 mana for 2 mana, but in the long run, you're gaining a lot of card advantage. So this card is pretty powerful. You can run 2 of them in a deck. It's a neutral, so you can splash it in anything. I'm expecting this card to see play in a lot of mid-range / aggro, even control decks, really, because this card is pretty darn good. And it's an Anubian, so there's some synergy there with the Anubian tribe. So yeah, I personally think this is one of the best cards in the set. Worthy of being called the chase card. That's that. Moving on to the next card, we have Thaeriel the Fallen. So Thaeriel, former god of light. Now he's just a neutral minion. 7 mana, 6/9. Nice. Roar, delve 3, Pyrrhic Cultists. These are the Pyrrhic Cultists. By the way, guys, follow me on Twitter. Hold on. This is a plug, shameless plug, but my Twitter is... what? My Twitter is JUJUTRONTV. Please do that. That'd be great. I post some content on there too. But yeah, let's go back. So these are the Pyrrhic Cultists. You have the Prohibitor, the Converter, the Conspirator, the Abettor, Tormentor, Curer, Moderator, Oppressor. Pause the screen, look over these effects. This one's good. This one's good. This one's kind of meh. 1 strength and overkill to a friendly creature. Meh. This one's good. This one can be good. Situational. Can be good. Situational. Give order 2 to up to 2 of your creatures. Can be good depending on the deck you're running and the deck you're facing. So, the cultists are 3 mana each. So, I actually don't like this card. 7 mana is too expensive. If I'm playing a 7 mana card, that's like what, turn 8 or 9 for me, depending on if I use a bag of tricks. 6/9 stat line, nice. is okay. I like the big health. I think I prefer large health minions, and yeah, I think the stat line's pretty good for 7 mana. However, I mean, this is more of a control card, right? It's not a game breaking card. It's definitely a card that you can play in your control decks or your later curve decks to help, skew your matchup a little bit. In terms of how broken this card is, this card isn't really broken. I don't think so. But it does replenish resources. So there might be times where, you're top decking as a control or mid-range deck, and you need to replenish resources. You play this card late game, get your 3 cultists, and you get to delve them, which is nice. So you can, benefit from that effect. It'd be a lot worse if it was a random, but yeah, because you get to delve, it seems pretty good, and you get to add them to your hand, right? It might be, I'm not going to say it's better than Jason, because I think Jason's this is a poor man's Jason, in my opinion. So Jason, you get to add legendary cards to your deck. Thaeriel, you get to add these Pyrrhic cultists to your hand, which is nice. So if anything, I might say that this might be better than Jason in some situations. But yeah, this is definitely a poor man's Jason. Cool. So I think this card is kind of meh. On the lower meh side. This is definitely, out of all the chase cards, this is definitely the worst one, but it's still kind of splashable, in my opinion. Okay, so last up we have Martyr of Whiteplain. This is your 3-mana 2/2 Olympian frontline. While this creature is in your void, after a friendly creature dies, pull it to your hand and summon this creature with Solace. So this is interesting because 3-mana 2/2 is obviously not a good stat line, but it allows you to recycle some creatures. After a friendly creature dies, pull it to your hand and summon this creature with Solace, right? So where can this be applicable? Well, if you want to reuse a roar creature, for example, that could be something to think about, right? You play this card. It also has frontline. So I don't know, maybe you have out of any of the Echo cards. I can't think of roar cards off the top of my head right now, which is bad, but yeah, usually you want to play this to recycle your roar or Echo cards, and then you play this card. It's technically 3 mana 4/4 worth of stats. It's just divided up into 2 situations. So 2/2 when you summon it, 2/2 when you divide it. Also, it nets you another resource in the form of recycling the resource you just lost. So it could be good. It's an Olympian too, so there's some synergy with all the Olympian cards. Honestly, it does have potential. I think if I had to rank all the chase cards from 1 to 3, Blade of Whiteplain would be the best. Martyr of Whiteplain would be second best, and then Thaeriel would be the worst. But even Thaeriel's kind of decent. It's just not every deck's going to run Thaeriel. I can see every deck running Blade of Whiteplain if, the meta was right for it. But yeah, so that was all of the cards in Light's Verdict. Final thoughts. Look out for Empire Reborn. This card is going to be really good. Someone's going to find a broken combo here. Watch out for the meme deck with Divine Coronet. Forged in the Light, Chosen One's going to be there. Blade of Whiteplain is really good. Someone pull that card. That's definitely the chase card of the set. But don't underestimate this card. And Empire Reborn is really good. Shines on us all, I probably need to look into more. Forge New Bonds, there might be some broken combos there. We'll have to see. But yeah, imagine playing a 9-mana card on turn 6. That's wild to me. Yeah, and other cards are really good. Overall, each domain got a really good buff. Of course, there are going to be trash cards in there, but the Dearly Departed. But I mean, It is what it is. You can't have like broken cards, or you can't have all broken cards in the set. Cool. With that being said, thank you guys for tuning in. That concludes our video. Please like the channel, or like the video, subscribe to the channel, comment your thoughts. Which cards are you looking forward to pulling from the set? I'm definitely looking forward to pulling an Empire Reborn. And also follow me on Twitter and follow me on Twitch too. Both names are the same, Jujutron TV for Twitter, and then Jujutron on Twitch. So that's Jujutron. All right, y'all. Thank you for tuning in. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and see you guys next time. Peace.